If you're serious about walking away from this crypto cycle with life-changing gains, then you need to understand something first. This isn't just about picking the right altcoins or timing one big move. It's about knowing exactly where we are in the broader cycle, because only then can you see the full picture. And if you're only watching prices, you're already behind. The 2025 cycle is unfolding with eerie similarities to the past, but there are some deeper layers that most people are ignoring. I've studied every major element of this current market, and today I'm going to break down the 3 most important stages that you need to understand to give yourself a real shot at crushing this cycle. Once we go through these stages, I'll share my personal 2025 playbook, built from years of experience, hard lessons, and a few uncomfortable truths most influencers won't admit. If that sounds good to you, smash that like button to support the channel and make sure you're subscribed. By the way, YouTube memberships are now available. If you want to get behind the scenes, deeper breakdowns, and exclusive content, it's a great way to support the channel and get more in return. You'll find the link in the description. Alright, let's start with the first and most obvious stage: understanding Bitcoin's current position within the market cycle. At a glance, it might seem like we're already deep into a bull market, but in reality, we're still in the mid-phase. That means the excitement is building, but the frenzy hasn't hit yet. Bitcoin tends to move in predictable waves, especially when you zoom out. If you study the past 3 cycles, you'll notice a repeated pattern. The market took about 18 to 20 months to top. Even more interesting, those tops didn't just follow halving events, they also lined up almost perfectly with US election cycles every time. In 2013, in 2017, and again in 2021, the Bitcoin top didn't just come in a post-halving year. It came in the November to December window of the year after both a halving and an election. We're now in a similar setup again. If the pattern holds, then we could be staring at a Bitcoin top somewhere in late 2025, possibly in November or December. And as strange as that sounds, it would align once again with the rhythm that has quietly played out for over a decade. But here is where things get interesting. The macro picture is different this time, which brings us to stage 2, the stage of monetary policy. While Bitcoin might be mid-cycle, the broader liquidity conditions haven't flipped yet. We are still in a world of tightening. Interest rates remain high, quantitative tightening is still in effect. And when liquidity is tight, altcoins don't move. They might spike here and there, but they do not sustain massive runs. This is why we aren't seeing the full altcoin explosion yet, despite Bitcoin being well above previous all-time high. What most people overlook is that altcoins won't truly move until liquidity returns in full force and one key signal flips. That signal is the ISM Purchasing Managers Index. This index measures activity across manufacturing and services, and anything below 50 suggests the economy is contracting. Right now, it is sitting around 48, which confirms we're still in a low-growth environment. But during past bull runs like 2017 and 2021, it pushed well above 60. That level doesn't just reflect growth, it signals a strong risk-on environment where money starts flowing freely again. Altcoins thrive in that kind of climate. Until we see this index break well above 50 and head towards 60, the broader alt season probably won't begin in full. If you look back at 2017 and even 2021 cycle, the altcoins didn't run until the monetary environment flipped. In 2021, it was the flood of QE after the lockdowns. In 2017, it came with a combination of looser monetary conditions and increased retail access. The altcoins followed the money. This cycle is different because we have Bitcoin ETFs absorbing liquidity up front. Institutions are parking capital in Bitcoin, not chasing meme coins on the fringes. That changes the pacing of this cycle, but it doesn't cancel it. It only delays the altcoin phase, and that phase will likely begin when the Federal Reserve and other central banks start opening the liquidity taps again. That could happen in late 2025. It would be perfectly timed with a post-election policy shift, and yes, the historic Bitcoin topping window. This is not a guess. It's a pattern. And the longer this pattern continues to play out, the more it seems like it's not a coincidence. You have to ask yourself, how much of this market is really organic and how much of it is pre-programmed by larger forces most retail investors don't think about? And that brings us to the third and most overlooked stage, the stage of your own portfolio. This is the internal game. While everyone is obsessing over charts and headlines, most traders forget to pause and reflect on something more personal. It's important to know exactly where you are in your own cycle. Maybe you're already in profit and feeling confident. Maybe you're at break-even, waiting for the right moment to catch a move. Or maybe you're still holding heavy red bags like most, hoping the market bails you out. Your profit and loss tells a deeper story than most realize. If you're already sitting on strong gains, this is the time to consider trimming and building a buffer. Not an all-out exit, just smart risk management. If your altcoins haven't moved yet, holding might still make sense, but only if you have a clear framework. Blind hope isn't a plan and it rarely works out. And if you're in deep losses, the worst thing you can do is revenge trade. This is the stage where emotions get loud. Greed whispers that you're missing out. Fear screams that you're too late. But if you don't manage your internal stage, you will fall into the same trap that wiped out people in every prior cycle. Your best option is to slow down and reflect on what went wrong. Learn from the mistakes without making new ones. In some cases, it makes sense to cut the dead weight and move on without over-rotating into something riskier. In other situations, it might be better to simply hold if you still have conviction and a solid framework backing your position. You know your portfolio better than anyone else. The key is staying objective and avoiding emotional reactions. Once you understand your position clearly, you're in a much better place to apply a real plan, not just emotionally survive the cycle, but actually play it with intent. And that's where the next phase begins. Because awareness is step one, but execution is what separates survivors from winners. Let's talk about the playbook. It is built around the three stages we just covered. The first two, which are the Bitcoin cycle and the macro policy environment, both point toward the possibility of a major rally in late 2025 or early 2026. That is not a certainty, but based on historical patterns, it remains a realistic scenario. We keep it as a working theory, not a fixed prediction, to avoid getting locked into one outcome. The third stage, which focuses on your portfolio position, is more personal and depends on your current performance. Since many people are still near break-even or slightly down, I am using that as the base case for this playbook. Here is how I would actually approach the chaos ahead. I start by staying in a wait-and-watch mode. I avoid spreading my capital too thin or chasing every altcoin that gets hyped on social media. I keep at least 25 to 30% in a mix of stablecoins and Bitcoin. That provides flexibility and protection if the market turns. I also pay close attention to emerging narratives, but I use a filter. I am not buying what is already trending. I watch for early signs of where liquidity is beginning to move long before the headlines catch up. In 2020, the signal was DeFi. In 2021, it was gaming and NFTs. This cycle, I am watching real-world asset protocols and AI chain overlaps, not because they are popular now, but because serious builders and funds are quietly allocating there. When the liquidity tide turns, those areas could catch strong momentum. I want to be positioned before the crowd rushes in. Next, I have clear profit-taking rules. I do not get emotionally attached to coins, and I am not afraid to trim positions when something looks like it has topped locally. I have seen paper profits vanish in past cycles. I know how quickly gains can disappear, especially in a market that is still operating on limited liquidity. Taking profits is not about pessimism, it is about discipline. Finally, I use what I call noise filters. The louder crypto Twitter becomes, the more cautious I get. When influencers all start echoing the same calls, when every YouTube thumbnail shows rockets, when people who vanished during the bear suddenly reappear with predictions, that is when I begin trimming positions. Not everything, but enough to reduce risk. Because by the time the masses get excited, the smart money is already planning their exit. Here is the bottom line: this cycle might rhyme with the past, but the rhythm is different. The halving is behind us, and so is the election. Liquidity has not flipped yet, but when it does, the clock will start ticking. If history repeats even partially, the window for a cycle top could open near the end of 2025 or early 2026. That could also be the moment when quantitative easing returns, adding fuel to a final altcoin rally before the music stops. By understanding these three stages and applying a structured playbook, you give yourself a chance to move through the chaos with clarity and purpose. Not just to survive this cycle, but to exit with gains that actually matter. This is the time to stay sharp and move ahead of the herd. If you want to follow how I'm navigating this in real time, make sure to follow us on socials using the links below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.